Today I'd like to talk about color pooling and to show you that it's easier than you think and you can always get it exactly even. You've seen pictures of people doing it where their triangles across the entire piece get wider or get narrower or flatten and then get wider up here, and it's because they don't understand the work. And so what I want to show you is how to easily get this where you don't have to count, you don't have to do a swatch. Amazingly, it's going to be perfect every single time. This is done with Impeccable by Loops and Threads. It's 100% acrylic, which most of like the red hearts that you see, and the other color pooling is mostly done with the acrylics, which I'm not fond of 100% acrylics. I love acrylic blends. I prefer cotton blends. But let me show you I just started doing this last week, and this is, so I did some acrylics because I knew that they would do the color pooling. Also with the acrylics, sometimes I found that they, like this one, really nice patterns form. This one is just a beautiful pattern, so sometimes you're going to have to go to a cheaper acrylic yarn to get the really beautiful colors or patterns that you like. This one is I love this yarn, and it's going to be a good color pulling yarn. You want to have the sections of the colors be at least the smallest section. Like this one works because the smallest section here is about 10 centimeters or about 4 inches, which is about the smallest piece of color change you're going to want to do, because this is one single crochet, one chain. It's going to take up this amount of yarn. So this is the first one I did, and I did all of these without swatching, and you can see on this one too, the diagonal diamonds are always lined. I first wanted to talk about a cotton blend that you can get. This one is a lovely, beautiful one that unfortunately was just discontinued. Isn't it just gorgeous colors? And it's worsted weight baby cotton, 50% cotton, 50% acrylic. Been at Hobby Lobby. Beautiful. Okay, so let me show you one more. Is a cotton silk blend. It's a Deborah Norville, but it's called Cotton Soft Silk Multi, and it said it was yellow, but obviously it's orange, and I got it online. But now talk about feeling good. This is no acrylic in it. It's just cotton and silk. It's 79% cotton, 22% silk. This feels yummy. And it comes in if you're not fond of the orange with the green, and it has a little gray in here, which is quite, it's actually quite pretty. Turns out fine. It does come in other colors that you can do this with. And as you can see, again, no swatching, and diagonals are always going to be perfect every time. That you have to know when you're doing this is, as you go, the first 2 rows that I'll show you how to set up are important, because after those 2 rows, you're set up for the rest. This one that I'm going to show you is also Hushabye, and this one's in the other one was Baby Blue Camo. This one is Pink Camo. Once you've set up your 2 rows, how you get these to line up perfect, because the pattern is not quite clear yet. You can see on this there's not enough rows, but how you get this to line up each and every time and never go off is understanding what you're looking at when you set up your rows correctly, which I will show you. Is that the row that you're on, every odd numbered row, so the 1, 3, 5, 7, 9 is going to match up except for be off by 1 stitch. So what happens is the row I'm doing right now, this light green color, you see how it's right here under this last one, the pink? So the work is going to tell you what color goes next. This dark green color goes next here. And so when I go in here, and I know from doing this already that I need that stitch to be loose, that I have to do green, and then this green color has to be in here. So you have to look at every stitch, but the next one is this beigey color is right underneath my last stitch. So it's telling me look down under your last stitch and that color goes next. Okay, so right straight under that stitch. What's the next one going to be? Beige. So if you do that, if you make sure that the next one is green, you know, if you make sure you look down at each stitch and you make sure your next stitch is green, because that's one underneath, as you go along, whether it's row 1, 3, 5, it's going to be like this. And when you turn and you start doing yours 2, 4, 6, 8, it's the same thing. You're going to be, when you're working that way, you're going to look under here. If this is light green under your stitch you just did, right there is going to go light green. So it depends on the stitch you just did. Look directly underneath, and that's the one that goes right here in your next stitch. And so after this green one, I have a pink. So you can see on your yarn that it's going to be pink. Now, I'm going to pull this out because I didn't do it quite loose enough. Why I'm going to pull it out is, you see this green loop across? So I know that these 3 have to be loose for me, because the way I set them up was I could either make 3 or make 4 greens. And you have that choice depending on how tight you want to make them. The main thing you want is to get the whole stitch, the loop across the top, and these 2 loops that go around, you want to get the whole stitch the same color. So when you're doing your first row here and your second row coming back, you want to make sure that you do that. You put sure that both bottom legs and the top of the stitch are all the same color. Now, if you absolutely have to, like right here, I got a green top on it, because sometimes you can't, it's almost impossible, like this one. I could leave it because I did right there, and when you're done it's not going to make that much difference. But if you get really picky, once you get really good and used to this, and you want it super clean, where every stitch looks perfect, then you might want to get really picky. And so what I'm going to do is go super loose here to make sure that I get all the way to the pink after I do my three greens, which I can see that I'm supposed to do 3 greens right there. And this is how I know that it's going to be the loop that you leave on your hook after your chain. You're doing a single crochet moss stitch, of course, for these color pullings. You do a chain. If the loop is the next color of the next stitch, look directly under. It's supposed to be pink. So right in there I'm going to do pink. It's perfect. This is pink. If this is pink, this is the part that flops over across the top of the stitch. So if you make this stitch now and finish it, that's that pink, and it came across the stitch. Now the pinks I know are going to be next, and so because I started on pink, and so that was that pink. Now I'm going to have another pink. So anyway, it goes on like that. So this one's going to be pretty too. So let me show you next how to start. So what we're going to do to start is I'm going to grab a new yarn, a new color I haven't worked with before, because these are the same. This is Baby Bee Ombre, and in the pink camo, and this was Baby Blue Ombre in the blue camo. So you'd think that since they're both ombres, both called blue camo or pink camo, that they'd be exactly the same stitches. They are so not. The pattern is going to be totally different. It's going to be different sizes of diamonds for your argyle look. So I'm going to pull another baby bead that I just purchased, and we'll start with that from scratch, and you'll see how to set up so that you can do it easily without swatching. You might have to rip out, which is just your first row, but I hate swatching. Doesn't everyone hate swatching? And there's no reason to swatch. You're not trying to match a perfect gauge. You're just trying to get the stitches to be a full color per stitch, and that you can do on your first row just by trial and error on the first row. Once you've got one whole segment of color sequence, all with one full color per stitch, and gone through one sequence where you start again, then you know what to do for all the rest of the sequences as you go down. So there's no reason to swatch. It's just repeat, rinse and repeat. Okay, let me grab the other yarn. Okay, so what you're going to do is this is also Baby B Hushabye Ombre. This one, I wasn't sure about the colors. We're going to go for it. I don't really care for this look that they have on here, but I bet you this is going to be really nice as an argyle. It says to use a 5.5 millimeter crochet hook. Any variegated yarn is going to work. Now, when they have the shorter colors like this is the longest color here is in the yellow. I can practically tell now, once you get used to your own size of single crochet chain one, how much yarn it's going to take. I can tell that I can get away with this much yarn. It's going to take up a single crochet chain one, so I can kind of even go. This is going to be three stitches out of this yellow, depending on which hook size I use. I'll set up a row and I'll end up switching. I'll know when I come to a certain color that I did the less amount of stitches, so I go up a hook size. Or I decided if I went with 3 stitches, I probably am going to have to go up a hook size, or just really do it loose. If I go to 4 stitches on this, I'm going to go down a hook size or do it tight. And so depending on what I decide, or what you decide as you're doing it, what you want to do, you'll be going up or down. So since this is going to call for an I9 5.5 millimeter hook for the yarn, I have a J10 6 millimeter, an I9 5.5 millimeter, and an H8 5 millimeter. I have 3 with me in case I want to change. Now sometimes I don't change, I just loosen up the stitch myself or tighten it up myself, no matter what hook I use. It's important to start your first row and your chain with 1 hook size larger. So this calls for 5.5 millimeter I9, and so I always start with a J10 at 6 millimeter. Just start where you would normally. Okay, so my camera phone turned off. You just chain as many as you need. I'm going to do a cowl again, and this is my perfect length. I love the way that this where this lands. And so just if you want to do a cowl, hang your chain around your shoulder, see where it lands on your chest, where you want the cowl to land. Go 6 inches longer on your chain than you would than where you want it to be, because you have to color match. So I need to chain a little bit more. While I'm chaining a little bit more, I'll tell you why I go up a hook size. Now, sometimes we go up a hook size just to have our edge lay nicely when we're making something, because chains tend to be tighter. The reason we go up a hook size for color pulling for the chain and for the first row that we set up is because when you do your first row, you're going to be going around one thread of your chain, and yet on the second row, what do? You go under a whole 3-thread chain, 3 threads of yarn chain, and so it takes up more yarn. So you need to be a hook size larger on your first row. Okay, I should be fine. Okay, what you want to do is you want to, this is going to be 1 single crochet, 1 chain, 1 single crochet, 1 chain, 1 single crochet, 1 chain. I can tell already. They're going to be real tight. Okay, so you don't have to even look at your pattern yet to see where your color pulling ends. Not quite yet. All you have to decide right now is what color you want the outside edge to be right here. What color do you want to start on? Like on here, I started with the blue here on the edge. So just to end on a color, pick a color and end there. Now, since this I can see already has greens on the outside of this yellow, I want to leave that kind of right here. That'll probably end up something where the diamond is right here. So I'm going to, that's a little purple in there. That's not even enough to make a stitch. Okay. I think I'll stop right there after the pink lavender, the pink, purple, pink repeat. If you've got a short repeat like this, or you've got a little, this, they did a little purple in there, right there. I don't know if you can see it. There's a tiny bit of purple in there. Right in there. Ignore it. Act like it's not part of the pattern. In fact, you can take, like this has, as you can see in the blue here, it goes to light blue in the middle, kind of a lavender here, and then a medium blue here. I could treat this as one color as you're going, because it doesn't matter that much. So I ended on this color. I got the new color here on the as the loop, and then you're going to go to the third chain from the hook, which is 1, 2, 3, which is that one, and do your single crochet to start the moss stitch, chain 1, and then you set up by just going, and that had that little bit of purple in it. Just I'm ignoring that and pretending like it's part of the blue. So skip 1 chain because you've chained 1. Skip 1 chain and go into the next one and single crochet, chain 1. Skip a chain, go into the next one, single crochet, chain 1. Now this is perfect because I've got 2 blues out of that. 2 blues and a single crochet out of 1 color, and they're full stitches, so that works perfect. So that's how you set up. Just making sure you get perfect full colors. Skip a chain, go to the next one, do your single crochet, chain 1. Okay, this is fine. Okay, so I've got 2 greens out of that. So 2 blues, 2 greens, that's working out good. And I can see from this hook on my, from the loop on my hook, that it's going to be yellow. Skip 1, chain 1, single crochet, chain 1. Let's see how many we can get out of the yellow. Okay, that's perfect. It's got a teeny bit of the green in there, but that's good. See, the loop across the top is yellow, and the 2 legs are pretty much full yellow, so I can get 3 yellows. Skip a chain, single crochet, chain 1, skip a chain, single crochet, chain 1. Got 2 greens again. That's working out good. 2 blues, 2 greens, 3 yellows, 2 greens. And this is the only time I'll count. Afterwards, I just look, after I've set up the 2 rows, I just look at the stitch below and copy it to the next one, and I know I'm in the right place, and it always works out perfect. And go into the next one. Okay, that's good. So I've got 2 blues out of that. I'm into the pink. I'm only going to get one pink out of there. Sorry if I keep going off camera. Okay, on to the next one. And one purple. So that's one pink, one purple. Skip the chain. On to the next one. We're going to get two pinks. And we're back to blue. It's going to be very interesting. What's nice about color pulling is it's like a surprise gift. You never know what the pattern is going to look like. Of course you would if you sat down with a graph right now and figured it out. You could graph it and figure it out from how many chains you're getting. But spoils the surprise. Okay. Change to green. A little more. Comes out really easy with center pull, but I don't like I like to control the tension with my hand, not have the yarn control it for me. Okay, see, this is so perfect that it's coming up, the end color is coming up on here. Okay, what I'm gonna do now is I've made quite a long chain because I'm doing a cowl again. I'm gonna keep going, and you can see what I'm doing is I'm just making sure I get a full color per single crochet stitch. Just one solid color for the legs and the top of the stitch. And so I'm going to keep going to the end. Now, since I started with these two blues before the two greens, when I get to the end, when I stop, I'm going to just keep going along my chain and putting all those single crochet chain one into here, making sure that I get one color per stitch. I'm going to stop when I hit this, when I hit the repeat where it goes two blue, two green, two yellow, two green. I know to stop right before the two blue. So that's where you stop. So I'll pause and then go down to the end of this chain. Okay, what I did is I crocheted almost to the end. And so now you have to find where your repeat is. I didn't bother looking when the colors repeated that much. I just made sure that, you know, every time I went to a yellow, I got 3. For the green, I got 2. On your color repeats, you might have a place where your color is 1 green on this side and 3 greens on this side, which is fine as long as you keep the same. Every time you hit the yellow, you keep the 1 green on that side and the 3 greens on this side. Whatever you do, you make sure that you do it. If you have the choice, if your yarn wants to change colors in between a stitch, so one half the stitch is one color and one half the stitch is the other, you need to loosen up the 2 stitches before and get that half a stitch into the 2 stitches. The other option is to actually tighten all the 3 stitches and get, you know, one more stitch out of it. I don't recommend that because it's going to tighten up on the second row. This first row is going to be looser, so you want to keep it loose. You don't want to put an extra stitch in if you've got an extra amount of yarn in the same color and it's splitting a stitch. You want to loosen up the 2 prior stitches and get that yarn to move into that stitch. Okay, so we go back to our beginning, and this is how we find where the end is. You look at your beginning, and your chain, my chain went along with, you know, pink, purple, pink, and then it started to blue, and I have the first 2 blue stitches as my first 2 full stitches on the chain. And so at the end here, I have to find where it's doing that again. Okay, so when you get to the end of row 1, there's the end of my chain. You have to figure out where you started. I started out with a blue, green, yellow, green sequence. So find out, you know, I have my 2 blues, and that's what's going to come up next is my 2 blues and then green and then yellow. So I'm right here at the beginning sequence. So I'm going to take the blue out so I don't have anything on row 1 here that starts out this way. And then to start row 2, I'm going to back out this pink stitch. I need to put that pink stitch up on top. So I'm going to chain 1, makes it disappear. So I'm going to not chain 1. I'm going to leave the chain 1 from the other one. I'm going to put my pink stitch here. And I know some have to go too tight because I'm going over more yarn. So I'm going to change to this. And this way I get, for row 2, I start with a pink stitch, and then I'm going to do, it comes up 2 blue stitches after the pink. So what I've done is just shifted this. This was a pink chain, now it's a pink stitch. Then there's 2 blue stitches that are now 2nd and 3rd stitch. And now you just go back. When you go back, just all you have to do, probably you're going to be using it's tighter, so you're going to use the hook that comes with the yarn, go down a hook size, and then make sure, you do have to count on this one, make sure that for each color you have the same amount of stitches, and that in each color you have full color stitches. Especially it's going to show these 2 legs of each stitch in between there. That's 1 whole stitch there, and so 1 whole stitch looks like that green one. And it's very important that the bottom two legs here are the same color. It's nice if the top is, but it won't be as important. But if you can get this look where you have a whole color for 1 stitch, it's going to be a prettier result. So just make sure that if you, on this first row, if you got 2 stitches for 1 color, you only do 2 stitches here for 1 color. Because it's bulkier going over this yarn, don't let it end up 1 stitch for that color if it's 2, or 2 stitches if it's 3. Make sure you get for each color the same amount of stitches. Try to make each stitch 1 full color. Meet you back at the end to show you how to turn. Okay, so I'm at the end of the row. I just finished here. I put my last one in between the turning chain and the first stitch, and I turn. And I've come up 1 chain, and now I look at my yarn. Next is pink, and then you see the blue color starting. So then you look, so I know my stitch, next stitch here is going to be a pink single crochet that's going to come out. Now you're on your 3rd row, so you can look down and let it tell you what the next stitch is going to be. So after I put this pink stitch in my first space, my blue is going to be right underneath. So that's talking to me and telling me put a blue stitch here. So I have to get to this blue color here by the 2nd stitch. So I may need to chain 1 more. Let's see if it eats up enough yarn. Not quite. See, I'm not quite into the blue yet, so I need to chain up a little higher here. Let's get 1 more chain in there before we turn. And let's make the stitch a little loose. It's going to start blue, but I want it blue on the loop, on the hook, the loop on the hook to be blue. So I'm going to loosely chain I could even add a third chain if I wanted to, so could you. There we go. See, I have the blue on the hook. So I've got my pink one in, and right underneath it is that blue one. So that one's telling me, put blue in the next. It's the rest of the work talks to you. The rest of the work is super easy. But it's that turning that you have to, you're not going to know with your first stitch what color it should be. But this one right underneath where your first chain space is going to tell you what your second color should be. You just look at your yarn and you can see if that's going to be your second color or not. If it's not, you did something wrong and you need to figure out what. You didn't set up your second row correctly. But now we've got these first two rows. These are our foundation rows. And if they're correct now, you can tell they're correct by the way you turn right here. If you can get this one under the first single crochet to match the one to the left that you just made the second single crochet, you're good to go. The rest of your work is going to be perfect. The only problems you might have are when you turn, and all you have to look at is what's going to be directly under here, right here, and figure out what that one's going to be. Look at your yarn and figure out how much yarn you have to use up or tighten up to get that color there. So the rest of this row is just easy peasy. I just did this blue one, and underneath is this green. That tells me this next one has to be green, and guess what? This yarn is green, so it's going to be green. And the whole work that you do, you don't have to ever count again. All you have to do is look underneath the stitch you just did, put that color next to it, and so underneath that one I just did is now yellow. So this one has to be yellow, and I can see on my yarn hook that it's going to be. So the rest of the work is pretty simple. I'm going to go ahead and finish this row. I'm going to keep looking here and putting that color the next stitch. So the one underneath goes on the next stitch, and I'm going to do that to the end. I'll meet you back at the end and we'll change and turn one more time. Okay, we're at the end of row 3, and so I can tell I've got a lot of this pink purple color and then this blue. You can kind of look, and I need to chain 1, and I'm going to go, there's a lot of room here. I don't even see where my chain 1 space is between here, but I'm going to go in all the way to the end, because you'll find at the end of some rows that you have, there we are, there's the chain 1. Okay, and turn. You have a lot of yarn sometimes, and sometimes you have no yarn to mess with. Okay, so I still have a lot of pink purple before I go to the blue. Okay, so this is going to tell me I have to look straight down, find my chain 1 space, which is right there, and then right below it is this pink. So that means in the second space I need a pink. And then once I do the pink in the second space, go straight down and I need a blue. So the third one over is going to be blue. So look at your yarn. Here's my blue. So I need 2 single crochets out of the pink before I hit the third one blue. So let's see if we can do it. I'll leave only 1 chain on there and see if I need to add 1 or subtract 1 after. It looks like perfect, leaving just the 1 on there. Yep, I came up with a blue for my third. Right down underneath that one is the blue, so in here goes the blue, and we're good to go. Now I promise you, if you keep this up and keep looking at that next one, has to be a blue at the stitch right directly underneath, and put that stitch here, you will have the beautiful, perfect design every time with every yarn. So this method, it's fast, it's easy, anybody could do this. You just have to understand what you're doing. If you need to watch this again, watch it. I have never made a YouTube video before, and I'm just doing this because I watched a lot of the YouTube videos on color pulling, and nobody is saying this. Nobody is talking about this. And a lot of people are not really showing what to do at the end of this yarn. You always have chain left over, and all you do is pull out the tail and just keep on pulling out the tail until you reach back. Pull out the tail until you reach back to you get a good starting place. Reach back to here, and then you can weave in the end, and so you don't end up with this extra chain here. And so I'll leave you with that. If you watch any of the other color pulling videos, it'll tell you, that you can make different kinds of stitches in here to bulk up the yarn if you need to. You should be set up for victory. So I hope you enjoy color pulling. I mean, it is beautiful and a wonderful technique and very fun to crochet, and I think everyone should be able to do it. So I'm making this video for people who have got frustrated because they don't understand it and can't figure out how to do it, and they're, after spending so much time swatching and everything, and then their work goes off. It's just no fun. Just keep to this method, and it's all there is to it. It's going to work every single time. Thank you for listening. Just wanted to help you out. I appreciate it. Thanks. Bye.